In 1994, I found out that Cox Cable was bringing the Spice Channel into our community. The Spice Channel would be on Channel 99, just one click away from cartoons on Channel 2. They were broadcasting it in this slightly scrambled format so that you could actually see all of the pornography that was going on, plus the audio was totally clear. My city council, I was serving on the city council in Southern California, the city of Poway back then, and the city council refused to stop them from bringing it in. I contacted the city attorney, the county attorney, the state's attorney, and then the U.S. attorney, asking if there was any legal way that we could stop them from bringing this slightly scrambled channel into our community. They all said that the laws were just too mushy. The U.S. attorney suggested I call the Federal Communications Commission. I called them, and they said the only way they could do anything about it if new legislation was written. So I contacted my friend in Washington, D.C., Congressman Duncan Hunter, and asked him about this pushing through legislation. He said, "You write the legislation, come back to Washington, D.C., and use my office as your base, and go ahead and walk it through Congress." So I went back to D.C., wrote the legislation, and got the American Family Association to create 550 copies of a video that I created with a camera in front of the television, and I just clicked back and forth from the cartoon channel to one click over to pornography. And they didn't want to make pornography tapes, but they did agree to do this for me. I couldn't find any other organization at all to back me, and or not to back me, but to sign on to this, because of the laws not allowing nonprofits to promote legislation. So I started my walk through Congress. I started knocking on doors on the House side, and walked to 220 congressional offices, giving out this legislation, a letter explaining it, and a copy of the videotape. Every single office that I walked to, every one of them said, "It's impossible. You're not going to get this legislation in because the telecommunications bill has already been closed. It's going to be going to the floor. If Chairman Dingell allowed your legislation in, your amendment in, they'd have to open it up to other amendments. It's impossible. It's not going to happen." Well, every day before I went over to Congress, every day before I went to Congress, walking this through, I went to the Capitol. And I did a Jericho walk around the Capitol 7 times every day that I was there. And I think I was there 4 or 5, maybe 6 days, I don't know. But every day I walked 7 times around the Capitol, praying for the walls to come down and for this legislation to pass. After walking to the first 220 offices and hearing 220 rejections of how it was impossible and wouldn't be done, I sat in a windowsill, on a cold marble windowsill in the Longworth building, looking down at my feet and depressed and saying, I may as well just go back to San Diego. This is not going to happen. It's impossible. And while I sat there dejected, this still small voice spoke to me and said, "Who's doing this, you or me?" When I said, "You are Lord," I was filled with more excitement about this legislation than you could possibly imagine. And I got up from that windowsill, more excited than when I first started, and went to the remaining 215 congressional offices, giving the same speech, hearing the same rejection. But and I'm not exaggerating here, as my foot crossed the threshold from the 435th office, my pager went off, and it was Chairman Dingell Chairman Dingell's office, well, it wasn't Chairman Dingell, but it was Congressman Duncan Hunter's office paging me saying that Chairman Dingell had just allowed my amendment in. Well, praise God. I then had to go to the Senate and walk to all 100 Senate offices. And I could not find one senator to carry the bill, and I knew that if I didn't get it carried in the Senate, that it would get watered down considerably in conference. But after going to 100 Senate offices and not finding anyone, I went back to San Diego, really not trusting God enough, because when I got back to San Diego, I got a phone call from this woman who was swearing. And I think it was her chief of staff swearing, saying, "I have no idea why she is doing this, but Senator Dianne Feinstein is going to carry your bill." And so, which was a miracle. I mean, it was probably more of a miracle that Dianne Feinstein, who was a friend of Hollywood, would have carried this bill, and her chief of staff was thoroughly upset over the fact that she was carrying the bill. But it passed the House, it passed the Senate, and President Clinton signed it into law. And I tell you this story for this reason: prayer works. And we need to pray for our president. We need to pray for our White House, his staff, his administration, his policies, and for the House and the Senate and all of our elected officials. In Chronicles it says that if we humble ourselves, if this nation would humble itself and pray, God will hear our prayers and heal our nation. And we need that healing in our nation. So I'm encouraging everyone here, as I did the Jericho walk around the Capitol and absolutely brought miracles forward from that. That was just miraculous that went through the House and the Senate. That God will answer our prayers. God will bless President Trump and this nation, and I would encourage you to get involved in doing a prayer walk around our White House for our president. God bless you, and God bless America.